Section 1. Who were the Medici? From bankers to bosses. So imagine a family. They were not kings or queens. They did not come from old noble blood. Instead, they started out as merchants and bankers. This was the Medici family, and they lived in a very exciting time. We are talking about the Renaissance, a period of great change in Europe. It began around the 14th century. The Medici story unfolds in the beautiful city of Florence, in Italy. This was a place buzzing with new ideas, incredible art, and a lot of money. The Medici would become the most important family in this city, and their story is full of ambition, power, and drama. They were the ultimate social climbers of their day, and they changed the world. The family's journey to the top began with money, specifically with banking. In the early 1400s, Giovanni de' Medici founded the Medici Bank. It was not just any bank, it became the most respected bank in all of Europe. Popes, kings, and powerful merchants all trusted the Medici with their fortunes. This made the family incredibly wealthy. But Giovanni was clever. He knew that wealth was not just for buying nice things, it was a tool. It could buy influence, friends, and power. He used his money carefully to build relationships and support people who could help his family in the future. He was laying the groundwork for a dynasty. When Giovanni died, his son Cosimo de' Medici took over. People called him Cosimo the Elder. He was even more ambitious than his father. Cosimo understood that in Florence you didn't need a crown to be a king. He used the family's vast fortune to control the city's politics from behind the scenes. He would lend money to his allies and make sure his friends got important jobs in the government. He acted like a puppet master, pulling the strings of Florentine society. To the public, Florence was still a republic, a city ruled by its people. But in reality, Cosimo was the one making all the important decisions. This was a new kind of power. It wasn't based on an army or a royal title. It was based on economic strength and clever political moves. Cosimo was careful not to show off his power too much. He lived in a relatively modest house for a man of his wealth. He wanted people to see him as a citizen, just like them, even though he was secretly the most powerful man in the city. He sponsored public building projects and charities to win the love of the common people. He was building a legacy, making sure the Medici name was associated not just with money, but with the good of Florence itself. Section 2. The Golden Age of Florence, Art and Power. Cosimo's grandson, Lorenzo de' Medici, took the family's influence to a whole new level. We know him as Lorenzo the Magnificent. And honestly, he truly was. Lorenzo was not just a banker and a politician, he was a poet and a huge lover of the arts. He believed that beauty could bring glory to his family and his city. He spent enormous sums of money on art. He turned Florence into the cultural capital of the world. Artists, philosophers, and writers all flocked to his court. Lorenzo created a vibrant circle of creative geniuses, and he was at the very center of it all. His palace was like a workshop for the Renaissance. Under Lorenzo's patronage, art flourished like never before. He didn't just buy finished paintings. He discovered and nurtured young talent. He spotted a young boy with incredible skill and invited him to live in his own household. That boy was Michelangelo. He treated him like a son, giving him access to education and the family's collection of ancient Roman sculptures. Lorenzo also supported other great artists like Sandro Botticelli and Leonardo da Vinci. He gave them the money and the freedom they needed to create some of the most famous masterpieces in history. Without Lorenzo, the Renaissance might have looked very different. But why did the Medici spend so much on art? It wasn't just because they liked pretty pictures. It was a brilliant form of propaganda. Every painting, every sculpture, and every building they paid for was a statement. It said, "The Medici are powerful. The Medici are sophisticated. The Medici are the leaders of Florence." The art they commissioned often contained hidden messages and symbols that celebrated their family. It was a way of cementing their status and making their rule seem glamorous and blessed. They were turning their money into a lasting legacy of culture and beauty. This combination of art and power defined Lorenzo's rule. His court was the envy of Europe. He hosted lavish festivals and tournaments that dazzled the people of Florence and important foreign visitors. He was a master of public relations, using culture to strengthen his political grip. While he was a brilliant patron, he was also a ruthless politician who dealt with plots and enemies. His life shows us how intertwined art, money, and politics were during the Renaissance. He wasn't just a patron, he was an architect of a golden age, building a city that would be remembered for its beauty for centuries to come. The Medici family's ambition did not stop at the borders of Florence. They wanted more. They wanted to be players on the world stage. Their ultimate prize was the papacy in Rome, the most powerful position in the Catholic Church. And, they succeeded, not once, but several times. In 1513, Lorenzo the Magnificent's son, Giovanni de' Medici, became Pope Leo X. This was a massive achievement. The family that started as bankers now had one of their own, leading the entire Christian world. As Pope, Leo X lived a life of incredible luxury and continued the family tradition of spending lavishly on art, most famously hiring Raphael to decorate the Vatican. But being Pope was not just about art, it was about immense political power. The Medici popes used their position to further their family's interests across Europe. They made treaties, waged wars, and arranged strategic marriages. Another Medici, Giulio, became Pope Clement VII. His time as Pope was filled with turmoil, including the disastrous sack of Rome in 1527. The family also married into the royal houses of Europe. Catherine de' Medici became the Queen of France. She was a formidable and often feared political figure who was involved in the complex and violent religious wars that tore France apart during her time as Queen Mother. The family's rise was not a smooth ride. It was full of danger, betrayals, and bloody rivalries. The Pazzi conspiracy in 1478 was a famous attempt to overthrow them. Rival families, with the secret blessing of the Pope at the time, attacked Lorenzo and his brother Giuliano during Mass in Florence Cathedral. Giuliano was brutally killed, but Lorenzo managed to escape, wounded but alive. This violent attack only made the Medici stronger. Lorenzo used the event to crush his enemies and tighten his grip on Florence. The story is like a real-life thriller, showing the high stakes of power in Renaissance Italy. Over time, the Medici transformed from being the secret rulers of Florence to its official monarchs. In the 16th century, they were made the Grand Dukes of Tuscany. They now had the titles and the crowns to match their power. They ruled for another 200 years, producing leaders who were soldiers, scientists, and patrons of music and theater. They built magnificent palaces like the Pitti Palace and created the famous Uffizi Gallery to house their incredible art collection. Their dynasty lasted until the family line died out in 1737, but by then, they had already changed the course of European history forever. So why are we still talking about a family from Florence who lived hundreds of years ago? The answer is all around us. The Medici's legacy is not just in history books. It is in the very foundations of our modern world. Think about banking. The Medici perfected methods of accounting and finance that are still used today. They created a system of international banking that helped fuel the economy of the Renaissance and laid the groundwork for modern capitalism. They proved that power could come from wealth and economic influence, not just from land and titles. This was a revolutionary idea that shaped the world we live in. Their impact on art and culture is even more obvious. When you visit a museum and see a masterpiece by Michelangelo or Botticelli, you are looking at the legacy of Medici patronage. They created a model for how wealthy individuals and governments can support the arts. The idea of a patron who funds artists to allow them to create freely is a Medici invention. They didn't just buy art, they invested in human potential. They built libraries and supported philosophers, helping to rediscover the knowledge of ancient Greece and Rome. This intellectual rebirth, known as humanism, is at the heart of the Renaissance. The Medici story is also a timeless lesson in power. It shows how a family can rise from humble beginnings to achieve incredible influence through ambition, intelligence, and a little bit of ruthlessness. They were masters of soft power, using culture, alliances, and finance to achieve their goals. Their story is full of political intrigue, family drama, and larger-than-life characters. It reminds us that history is not just made by kings and generals, but also by bankers, patrons, and clever political operators working behind the scenes. They are a case study in how to build and maintain a dynasty. Ultimately, the Medici matter because they helped create the modern world. They funded the art that defines the Renaissance. They influenced the politics that shaped modern Europe. They pioneered the financial systems that drive our economies. When their last ruler, Anna Maria Luisa de' Medici, died, she left the family's entire, vast art collection to the city of Florence, on the condition that it never leave the city. It was their final gift to the world. Because of her, we can still go to Florence today and witness the incredible beauty that her family helped create. The Medici are not just a family from the past, they are a permanent part of our cultural DNA.